So I don't know if you know, but I was on a Twitter Spaces with you like 4 months ago, and
Okay.
we were talking about MicroStrategy, and it was pretty cool. We were just talking about your thoughts on Bitcoin. But I've been a fan for a while, and I'm happy you're joining the stream.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thanks. Nice to hook up with you.
All right, so how much time? What, 30 minutes? You got 30 minutes?
Whatever you want. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Here we go. First of all, big fan of Goodell. I actually paid for it. So
thank you. Great.
Yeah, I got into that $60 a month tier a while ago.
Now I have to be nice to you.
Now you have to be nice to me. I have your Bloomberg competitor right here.
I can't say anything nasty at this point. You're a customer, so I work for you.
There we go. Okay, so my audience has really been interested in your thoughts in a variety of different areas: Palantir, NVIDIA, Bitcoin, quantum. So I think we can take those one by one. But I think we'll start off with the elephant in the room. Everyone has been wondering why you are short quantum and how quantum is going up 4 or 5x. Is it just retail hype, momentum, or do you, the guy who has done pretty well for himself in life in terms of managing money, not understand the quantum thesis? So I'll just lay it out there. Are you right, or are the shorts going to get burned on quantum?
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is going to be one of the biggest trades in my career. I think that, and my career is not, as you know, it's not in trading. My career is in being an entrepreneur. I built drug companies. I'm building a software company now, so it's not really one of these things where I, have wanted to or I'm going to, be a hedge fund manager. Or I've never really wanted to do that, and nevertheless, I find myself compelled, because this is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. There really hasn't been anything like this. I don't know if ever is the right term, but it's really a remarkable thing that's going on in the market, and it's wrapping a lot of people who are new to the market into it. And I think it's there's something like this happens, every few years. We had the cannabis rally, we had NFTs, we had, 3D printing, there's a lot of little mini bubbles, but this one's pretty preposterous. I mean, 3D printing could have been a thing, cannabis could have been a thing, and you just have to sort of wait and see. And then when all the cannabis companies reported earnings, they were really bad. Gross margins were negative. You can't build a business on negative gross margins. And, you sort of watch and kind of like decide that, okay, this is a cool and exciting idea, but the business just isn't there. Quantum is sort of like that. There's just no possible way that these companies could be successful. My girlfriend,
there's no way they could be successful.
No way. Yeah. So my girlfriend's where a lot of people are experts, and we talk to all the same experts everyone else does, all the big names in the field. But the big names in the field are telling you that it's not possible. Scott Aronson, again, my girlfriend worked with him at MIT and at OpenAI. And in essence, Scott just doesn't believe that quantum's coming anytime soon. But worse than that, there's 4 quantum stocks: Rigetti, D-Wave, IonQ, and Quantum Computing Inc.
Correct.
2 of those are frauds. So IonQ and Rigetti are actually trying to build a quantum computer. Now, I think that's 30 years away. Even if you do build it, there's nothing there. But D-Wave and Quantum Computing Inc., in my opinion, and I know other people disagree, they are complete scams. So D-Wave has been around 20 years. They made 6 generations of their computers. They've never worked. You can't find a customer who says they work. You can't find a customer who actually uses the machines in production. In software, we call production live setting, the real deal. Not just, trying it out, see if this thing could work someday, but actually no, this is a part of our business.
Right.
No one, not a single one that I'm aware of. And again, if the company could show one, I challenge them to do so. But, so I'm shorting these stocks. QCI was a beverage company. They're under investigation by the SEC. Not that I love the SEC, but, I think that, this is a company that basically didn't exist before. They had $30,000 of revenue last quarter, 30,000. Your stream and my stream do more than that. And I think that, for this to be a $2 billion publicly traded company that has a quantum is just silly. Again,
why? In your professional opinion, how did we get to $2 billion off 30,000 in revenue?
Liquidity. So it's liquidity. I love your stream, your viewers. I love my viewers. Not all of our viewers are the sharpest tools in the shed. There are a few amongst us who are not great at investing. You're excited. You want to buy the next NVIDIA. So do I. But you have to look through thousands of stocks to find the one gem. And that's not what people do. People are lazy. They don't want to do that.
They want to read Reddit. They want to watch a YouTube. They see one thing that sounds exciting. Oh, that sounds like the future. I'm going to buy that. And, that's typically what happens. NFTs were the same way. Cannabis was the same way. How could you deny the sexiness of cannabis? You got a 100-year-old tobacco industry in the US, $100 billion companies, and now you have weed. Oh my God, this is going to be huge. Well, it turns out the business fundamentals just weren't that good. And the Tilrays went down 95%, Aurora Cannabis down 95%, et cetera. And the reality just hits you sometimes. And we all want to buy growth stocks. We all want to buy exciting stocks that could be the future. But you also have to do your homework. And the CEO of IonQ, former CEO and founder, had this very esoteric podcast, a physics podcast.
I saw you tweeting about it yesterday.
Yeah, 629 nanometer. It's like the nerdiest thing you can imagine. But this is where you find the alpha. And he went on there and he said that quantum computing is not going to be around for another 30 years. And there's no application. We don't know what they're good for, literally. And even the NSA. So the one thing I can see in quantum is that they would be extremely good for hacking and encryption breaking. And this is like a hobby of mine on the side, specifically with Bitcoin. And so I've played with quantum computers. I've bought every single commercial quantum computer. I'm a major user of their cloud time. I spent thousands of dollars of my own money on quantum computing. And I can tell you these machines don't work. They can't factor even the number like a million, which a child could factor with pen and paper. Right. These quantum computers can't do that. And it doesn't look like, oh, we're just around the corner, we're going to get a breakthrough. In fact, if anything, it looks like we may be at a logjam. Now, technology does progress. And sometimes you get these discontinuous jumps where it's like, oh, wow, okay, it didn't work before. And all of a sudden, boom, it works, kind of like AI. But the problem is, what are we going for? What is it that we're going to do when the magic machine shows up? And nobody can answer this question. And factoring numbers is fun. I like doing it. But the only thing it's good for is encryption. We've already had post-quantum encryption. In fact, the guy, his name is Chris Monroe. He's a genius. He's an idol of mine.
Yep.
He's probably going to win the Nobel Prize. Chris said that even the NSA doesn't want a quantum computer, which shocked me, actually. That's way more bearish than I ever was. He said that they just want to know when quantum computers are coming so they can prepare for it. And I thought that was fascinating because a lot of people think the NSA has a quantum computer or they're really interested in it. But that impression from the founder of IonQ was really surprising to me. I wouldn't have characterized it that way. And again, he's sort of explaining that even the big companies like Google and IBM don't have quantum computers that will work. He thinks they're wasting their money.
So I want to talk about Google and IBM, but here's a question. If you were the biggest quantum bull on the planet, what is the use case that you are the most excited about because of quantum?
I think it's people who are these people are confused. They don't understand what these computers can or can't do. So if you think about computing in general, NVIDIA is the biggest computing company.
Right.
And xAI, OpenAI, these are the companies that buy these machines and they want to train models and run inference. These are hard to do computationally. Right. Quantum could never do those. It can't do those. Why? There's no memory. There's no RAM. There's no way to load the data into the machine. The machine has 100 qubits. You can how much can you can store your name in 100 qubits, maybe, but you can't store the corpus of the internet at 100 qubits. It doesn't do that. I think there's this confusion that like these are normal computers. You can I just watched this interview with John Preskill. Preskill is one of the fathers of quantum computing. He worked with Richard Feynman at Caltech, who invented quantum computers, the idea of them at least. Right. Preskill said, the interview said, Preskill, can this make me post on Instagram faster? And this is not what these machines do. These are scientific machines. And the only people really interested in them are scientists.
So if you had to come up with a use case that is uber bullish, what would it be?
I mean, there is this idea that you could, and listen, I have a vivid imagination. I can try to come up with one. And the best I could give you maybe would be simulating physics. So like a really good physics engine. But this gets back to a really interesting point that Jensen Huang said. He said, he had the 10 quantum CEOs up on the stage, and he said, we don't need a better solution to the traveling salesman problem. So anybody who knows computing in the house knows this is the NP-hard problem that traditional computers struggle with. You cannot, if I give you 70 cities or 70 blocks of a city where you have to drop off, mail at all 70 blocks. What is the optimal route? That's a really hard question. Combinatorially, it kind of explodes on you. It's like 2 to the 70th power or something crazy like that. But what's funny is that a regular old computer, a stupid ass laptop, can do this equation close enough. It gets like a 99% approximate of the perfect answer. And in fact, quantum computers, it's proven that if they don't have a complexity speed up for traveling salesmen, they probably could do it faster. But the point is, shaving a millionth of a second to get the optimal mathematical answer, this is something scientists are interested in. This isn't something Uber is interested in, or they would be investing. FedEx would be investing in quantum computing. UPS would be investing in quantum computing. These guys have a lot of money. They would be doing it. They're not.
Why did Jensen have them on stage?
So it's interesting. This is really fascinating. My girlfriend's dad was a senior guy at NVIDIA. And one of the funny things here, not that it gives me any insight, but, I've been following NVIDIA my whole life, and, it's the greatest company in the world. The question is, so he goes on stage before that and he says, quantum's 30 years away. It doesn't work. It's not interesting.
Right.
And the quantum stocks, fall. I made like $2 million that day. And I am sitting there watching this like, oh, this is great, and he shits on them over and over again. And the problem becomes these quantum companies call him and say, hey man, you really did a number on us. And, this is, what the hell, and I think Jensen just in that moment had this flashback to like when he was, making GPUs and everyone was laughing at him saying, GPUs don't matter. GPUs will never make a difference. And he was obviously right in the long run. And he basically said, I can't be that guy. I can't be the guy shitting on entrepreneurs, crapping on their dreams, telling them they're never going to work. I have to at least hear these guys out. This is the guy who knows the most about computing on planet Earth. And he said in his heart of hearts, he said 30 years away. He didn't change his mind. He didn't say, actually it's next year. He still thinks it's 30 years away. Yeah. And I feel like, again, we all want to be bullish on something. We all want to get the next 100 bagger, but just be careful what you wish for, because there's a lot of people that quit the stock market after they bought wheat stocks and they dropped 90%. People who quit the stock market or quit financial life when they bought Bored Apes at $1 million. I know a guy who had to sell his private jet. He bought a ton of Bored Apes and NFTs. This is real life. He literally was a private jet guy. Jet's gone.
So
he still has a Bored Ape.
I mean,
don't be that guy.
There was a guy who bought Beeple's NFT for $69 million. I think it's worth $20,000 from the last projections I saw.
I mean, if you want to be that guy, knock yourself out. But I feel like you're paying.
Do you think there is so much momentum in terms of liquidity for retail's buying Palantir, Tesla, NVIDIA? Is there that much free money out there, even with rates that money's going into quantum and these types of stocks?
I think we're almost in a post-money world. And I think the way this is a little philosophical, but we're getting to a point where money in essence is worthless, and things like attention is a new currency, right? When it's kind of anecdotal here, but again, hang philosophically for a second. 20 years ago in New York City, the average beautiful woman cared about what job you had, how much money you had.
Right.
Nowadays they might say, well, how many followers does he have? And it's one of these things that's a really a shift, because what can money buy you? I had lunch with Peter Thiel like 20 years ago, and he had this iPhone, and I'm sitting there saying, man, this guy's worth like 100 zillion times what I'm worth. I got nothing. And, I'm just starting my first drug company, and he's got the same phone I do. There's no luxury. We're eating the same meal. What does being rich really get you? And inflation's been the highest, the higher the price the asset is. So sports teams have gone up 20x. Picasso's have gone up 10x. The stuff that, the Veblen goods have gone up. The rest of us live the same life as even the wealthiest people. So money becomes one of these things that's really not that important. When COVID happened, our economy didn't go to zero. Everyone kind of threw a party. It was a very bizarre, thing. Unemployment's the lowest it's ever been. I'm not sure. And then finally, people use real money to chase crazy assets, a fart coin, Ethereum, Bitcoin, et cetera. These are interesting projects, but they're probably not worth trillions of dollars. And I think the fact that people have disposable income, look, this is a market, this is a cycle, at the bottom of the cycle, it'll be different. And there's always a bottom of the cycle. And it doesn't feel like, if I had to pick, it feels like we're closer to the top than the bottom.
Okay, so I have a couple more questions on quantum, and then I want to get into some thoughts around Bitcoin, Palantir, Nvidia, broader market. First of all, Martin, we thank you for taking your time, bro. Really appreciate it. Martin's Twitter, I'm putting it right here in the chat. He's doing some awesome stuff, building a nice Bloomberg competitor, so you guys can check that out. There's his Twitter right there. Okay, so here's a question: are you accusing the quantum CEOs of fraud?
Yes and no. So I think that they're, fraud, the definition of fraud was something I'm very familiar with. Are they knowingly? It's a very technical thing. Sometimes I've beaten it and I've also lost it.
Yeah.
The technical definition usually is: are you knowingly misleading others? Are you knowingly saying false things? And I think the answer to that is unequivocally yes. But to other people, it means other things. If you have a safe harbor statement, you wrap yourself around it and say, well, these are subject to forward-looking statements, and you can kind of do that and say, we may not build a quantum computer tomorrow. You don't know. So I think there's like,
it's kind of like you saying not financial advice, even though you don't believe in saying that, right?
Yeah, I personally don't believe in saying that, but I do think it's one of these disclaimers where if you really pin down the quantum computing companies, they would never do an interview with me, because I'd say, what date is it coming? And what will it do? And what's it going to do better? And who is going to buy it? And they won't be able to answer these questions because they're hard questions. And the reality is these companies are built on imaginations that are wilder than possibility. Again, like, it's okay to have a great imagination. Like, I have to do that as a business person. I dream one day that I can bring quantitative investing to the masses and you can trade like Jane Street and Citadel. That's my dream. Is it realistic? Maybe, maybe not, but it's possible. The quantum stuff is just not possible. The laws of physics and computing prohibit what they're talking about. Now, again, could there one day be computers made by IonQ or Rigetti, not by D-Wave or Quantum Computing Inc., because I don't think they have anything at all, and nobody even pays those companies any attention in the community. Preskill said that D-Wave is a fraud. This is a theoretical physics professor. He doesn't normally go out and call companies fraud. Scott Aaron said that D-Wave is a fraud. But the real two companies, IonQ and Rigetti, which are the also-rans, these are runts of the litter, right? So the big quantum companies are IBM, number one, I'd say, Google, number two, Quantinium, number three, PsiQuantum, number four. There's 6 more privates, and then IonQ, and then Rigetti. So like, these are the runts of the litter. These aren't even the good pups. And, so they have a shot at maybe making a quantum computer someday, but there's no obvious thing they can do. So to me, fraud means, we know we don't know what the application is. We know that we don't know if we can make these or not, but we're going to still stoke excitement about it. Now, these companies almost went bankrupt, so they've had feast and they've had famine. They were 2 years ago, D-Wave is this close to bankruptcy because they couldn't get people excited. So as an entrepreneur, I kind of understand it's great when people are excited, but I do think some of these have been really irresponsible. I'll give credit real quick to answer your question definitively. The Rigetti CEO has been superb at saying, don't expect revenue. Right. Don't expect us to make a machine anytime soon. We are a research company. Stop thinking this is a near-term thing. And he's done that, and I have to applaud him for doing that, because the other guys are trying to tell you quantum is now, be excited today. And look, 5 years a lot can happen in 5 years, but as of right now, these machines are completely useless.
The D-Wave came out with some advanced hardware a week ago. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so they won't let anybody try it, and I think that's very telling, because IonQ lets me use their machine. Despite I'm the biggest skeptic, IBM lets me use their machine. Rigetti lets me use their machine. New Era lets me use their machine. All of these other companies that
have you reached out to D-Wave?
I have, yeah.
And they said no.
You cannot get this machine without them banging you over the head trying to upsell you consulting services. So many people have published. There's a website called Archive, ARXIV. It's a scientific website. Many people who have access to the D-Wave machine have published and showed that there is no speed up with the D-Wave machine. And in fact, I'm friends with a hedge fund called Kerrisdale. They put a short report out. Kerrisdale does real work. They're not, scammers. They've been in the hedge fund business a really long time. They don't get everything right, but in essence, they found that mostly what D-Wave does is they take their quantum computer, they attach it to a real computer, they give you the result, and they say, that they're doing something, but really the quantum part's not doing anything. And a former D-Wave employee said that the quantum part's just for show. So this company's been on 20 years. They've had 6 generations of this computer. They have the latest generation out now. Can't find anybody that says, I use this computer and it helps me. Can't find a single person.
Have you looked into any of the partnerships they have? Any of, I think, Toyota, MasterCard, stuff like that?
Yeah, we have. So all the people we've talked to have said, Kerrisdale and we have talked to almost everybody they've pointed out. Everybody says quietly, behind closed doors, it was a research agreement. It was an attempt. It was an attempt. Look, MasterCard's a $500 billion company. It was an attempt to think about possibly maybe improving one process at MasterCard, and it failed. And there's a reason. If any of these companies like the D-Wave machine, they would have 100 million in revenue. They would have $1 billion in revenue if these machines were useful. They don't have any revenue. Nobody's buying these fucking things.
Well, that's what's been confusing to me. Obviously, I've got some people that have been excited about quantum, and I saw these stocks at 3. My kind of value investor hat said I can't buy them. Then I see them go to 20, and I'm like, am I the idiot, or is just like what's going on here? And I think you would say, yeah, you're kind of dumb for not buying at 3 because it could have gone to 20. But realistically, chasing it at 20 here is a little scary.
Oh yeah, it's nuts to even think about buying them here. But I would say, look, at 3, part of there was a technology in biotech called RNAi. And people were skeptical about RNAi, including myself. And RNAi came through. It happened. It really transpired. And I wouldn't say it changed the face of medicine, but it was a real thing and it worked. So it doesn't mean that technology can't work. But when you're pricing in the industry actually not just working, but becoming huge right very soon, that's where the value investor has to say, no, there's a chance it doesn't work.
Right.
And that chance is actually pretty decent. There's a chance that even if it works, you're not the company that wins. And then there's a chance commercializing it's not going to be great. And then there's a chance that, if you discount all these cash flows, nothing's happening. It's a terrible investment. So I feel like, lotto tickets are out there. Fartcoin is worth $1 billion. NFTs are not really having a comeback, but there's meme coins are the new form of NFTs. So those have been on a bubble. There's other bubbles in like some of these aviation stocks, nuclear, a bunch of stuff. People want the big bull win. And I get that, everybody wants the 100x, but this is exactly what cannabis felt like. It's exactly what NFTs felt like. And people will literally tell you to your face, you're stupid for not owning Fartcoin. And you're stupid for not owning Bored Ape at $1 million. Well, Bored Ape's $10,000 now. And, there were people that were bamboozled, basically tricked into buying Bored Apes for millions of dollars. And, that's what this is. Yeah, it's dazzling. When you look at the Bored Ape, it went from 0 to $1 million.
Yeah.
And at $1 million, a bunch of people said, I can't take it anymore. I have to buy it. And the price action's too good. What if it goes to 10 million? This is going to be like a Picasso. Picasso's at 100 million. This might be bigger than Picasso. So it's a steal at $1 million. Just listen to common sense.
That's what's been confusing me, because you got amazing companies like an NVIDIA and Palantir that fell damn near 40-50% over the past 2 months.
Right.
But people went into the most speculative parts of the market. And that's where I'm like, what stage of a cycle is this? Or is this even?
I think it's the Kaplan frontier. So the Kaplan frontier, it basically just says the more risk you take, the more reward you get.
Right.
And that is true. So who looks the best when there's high beta, when the market's going up? The highest risk stuff looks the most attractive. And you sit there having FOMO saying, ooh, I really want that Fartcoin. It went up 30% in a day. Imagine if my portfolio went up 30% a day. I'd be rich. And then you realize that, wait a second, it doesn't make sense to buy something called Fartcoin. It doesn't really make sense to buy something in quantum computing. Maybe I should buy Coca-Cola. And you buy Coca-Cola, it doesn't move. In fact, it might go down. And so it's frustrating being an investor. It's not easy. But the answer is not buy the riskiest asset that you can find. Options, for example, a lot of people love to trade options. They wipe out their account. They put more money in their account when they have it, and they wipe it out again. And I just really think there's a better way to invest that is exciting, but not stupid. And, of course, there's no easy way to do it. The quant funds are basically just running roughshod over the whole market. They're making so much money that, it's sick. And, if you can't beat them, join them in a way. And I think that, trading as a human is extremely difficult. And I just wouldn't advise it. And again, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's like playing chess against a machine. Not even Magnus Carlsen can beat the chess machine, but you want to try? I don't think you can beat Citadel and Jane Street. I think the only way to do it is to sort of play the game on their level, which it's hard.
Last question on quantum, then I want to move on. How leveraged are you into these shorts, and could you blow up your entire net worth if this goes against you?
Yeah, so I've been in this situation a million times. I'm not worried about that. Unlike other people, I do have access to capital outside of just my own.
Yeah.
So I've been making the rounds to various billionaires. As this trade goes up, I have more confidence to go to the people I used to work with, to go to the people I've met in my travels over the years, and say, listen, I've got a deal for you. This is the greatest trade I've ever seen. Do you want to short these stocks? It's an unbelievable opportunity. And if they go up higher, I just raise more capital and find more capital and short more of it. Because
what are these conversations with the billionaires like? Are they like, holy crap, this is a bubble, take as much money as you want?
Yeah.
Like, how are you?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. They a lot of these guys are long stuff, so finding shorts is something they're interested in. They don't have mark to market. The hedge funds can't short right now.
Right.
That's why these stocks are popping as well. GameStop just put a kibosh on shorting. And the hedge funds, if a short goes against them even 10%, they're out. They're chicken. In my day, Tiger, Soros, I worked at a Tiger Cub. We were fearless. The fund I was working for literally was called Intrepid. We had no fear. We were short a stock if it went up 10x on us. It doesn't matter. We'll short more. And, Melvin was a Tiger Cub too. A lot of people don't know this. And our funds interacted a lot. And, Melvin should have stuck through the GameStop short. They should have just kept piling in. And he had the capital. I think he didn't want to do it for business reasons because he had, his firm. He didn't want to sort of continue with that firm and owe investors more money. And it was like a technical reason, but he absolutely could have gotten 5 billion from here, 5 billion from there and said, game on, I re-raise you in poker. And I think that, he should have done that. But, I think that he had his own reasons. He's still a billionaire. He's not sitting there crying. And I think, it's the same way, I'm a professional. I'm not worried about, these stocks going up. They could go up more. They could go up 50x. Anything could happen, but we will find a way to pop the bubble and make money on the trade. Now, Tiger and Soros, two of the biggest firms in the world in 2000, they quit at the top, shorting stocks. Right at the top, they said, I can't take it anymore. Get me out, cover these shorts. And guess what happened? It was over. That was the literal top of the NASDAQ. It took 15 years to come back. So,
you have supreme confidence on this.
What's that?
You have supreme confidence on this trade.
Yeah. I mean, I try to be sober, but if I look at the history of all the stuff I've shorted over 25 years, this is up there. I mean, I remember shorting internet stocks in 2000 and, it was hard to fight that narrative. Martin, don't you know the internet's going to be the biggest thing ever? Of course. Yeah, I use it. I'm a kid. And, people tell me, you're playing with fire. The economy's changing. All the rules are going to be rewritten, et cetera, et cetera. And, it didn't bother me. It didn't faze me. Quantum isn't anything like that. Quantum is not going to change the world like the internet did. Quantum's not going to change the world like AI is doing as we speak. It's really a farce. And it's a Me Tooism. It's a FOMO. I missed AI. I missed NVIDIA. I need the next thing. What's the next big thing? Well, look, I mean, there's stocks that are privately held. I think one of the biggest problems you and my communities are going to have is that these stocks like SpaceX, privately held, you and I can't buy them.
Yeah.
You need millions of dollars to buy them, at least. And SpaceX went from 5 billion to 350 billion. Sucks for you. Sucks for me.
You're saying retail investors see the big guys make money by getting in early because they're accredited, and then they flock to Fartcoin to make up for that. But that
you're chasing that. You want the SpaceX, you want the OpenAI, but guess what? You're not in that club, and you'll never be in that club. And I really like Palmer Luckey at Anduril. I'm proud to call a friend. He wants to take his company public because he wants the average Joe to be able to buy a stock. And Palantir did the same thing. And look at how many millionaires Palantir has made.